We've been recording? Okay, we're good. We're good. Okay, so today, too many tabs open. Today we're gonna be talking about handling. I'm gonna hand it over to how many people do we have? Okay, I think we will split into groups actually today. So after I go over like a little brief overview, we can split up and I'll hand it over to Cheyenne for the rest. But file handling, I'm just gonna give a little brief overview. Why do we need file handling? Basically, beforehand in your programs, when you're running your Python script, every time you make a variable, a list, a dictionary, and you make changes to those lists, they don't really exist. They're made into or they're put into your um, temporary storage, your RAM, your memory, and these only exist while your program's running. However, before your program was running, your variable of like the amount of time, or I don't even know what variables you would have that, or let me see. If you have a shopping list, right? That shopping list never existed before the program. In the program, you declared a list, and now it exists, but in that temporary storage. And then you can make changes to it during your program, like you ask user input. You can add this to a shopping list. You can add this to your pantry, etc. However, when the program's done, they get rid of the stuff. And if you had a shopping list, generally speaking, you don't want that shopping list to disappear after you turn your program off. But in this case, we run the program again, and that shopping list is gone. So how do we fix this with files? If we have the ability to, uh, store stuff on a drive, and then we shut our program down, and then when we start a program again, we can retrieve that, make changes to it, save it, put it away, and that ability gives us functionality, and it literally allows what you see everywhere. How that's literally how Google Sheets is run off of complete file handling, um, progress in your games, quite literally everything that has some sort of progress. So file handling is pretty important. We're going to be going over just some base level file handling in Python, and then a really common format that we will be using when it comes to data processing for feeding your machine learning models. So, Jamshid Uncle, if you can make a breakout meeting, and then the quote unquote advanced kids can scooch over there. And then Shine can share a screen over here.
I think Jamshid Bhai is not here. Jamshid Bhai, Jamshid Bhai, can you hear me?
Wait, I'm gonna go ask him. He's downstairs right now.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to split up today because I know some of the I'm saying quote unquote advanced, but some of those guys already have been doing file handling. So we were just gonna do like a quick brief over that and then go on to the next topic. That was the goal. So I guess I'll start while we're waiting.
Sorry, I
Oh
think
yeah,
I
go ahead.
was away from my desk and you need breakout rooms, right?
Yep.
Create one breakout room. Um, do we choose? I'm sorry, how do we do? We choose people or?
Can you make it open?
Okay, actually, open all rooms. You got it.
All right, cool. So if you want to basically in the other room, I'm just going to brief over file handling very briefly. It's not a super complex topic. And then we're just going to be just rolling a little bit faster. That's a bit about it. And then going on to the next topic.
All right, looks like 3 students here. Cheyenne,
Yeah,
okay. Do you want to
yeah,
start here?
yeah. Okay, I'll share my screen. Oh wait, there's someone in the chat. Yeah, the other breakout room I think is for just like mo people who are like more familiar with like file handling in Python and stuff. I think they're gonna like just like briefly go over that. So if you're not as like familiar with it, then I'd say stay in this room. But if you are, then you should join the other breakout room. But yeah, so I'm gonna just go over like file handling and stuff if you weren't too familiar with it here. So I'll share my screen. Okay, so file handling. So why do we need file handling? It's like a way to store, retrieve, and process data permanently, right? Um, we have we use files all the time. Like whenever you download something or are writing something, that's when you're using files, right? Python provides several built-in functions actually to work with these files. We'll go over the main functions on the following slides, but they're pretty like self-explanatory in terms of like their use, right? Like here we have like open, which is kind of like intuitive, right? It means to like open a file, read is like to read from a file, write is to write to a file, and close is to close a file. We'll go a bit more in depth as we go on, but yeah, it Python operates on these modes as well, right? It operates on a write mode, a read mode, and append mode, and more as well. But those are the three main ones that we'll be going over today. Let's start with opening a file. Um, this will essentially create the file if the file name doesn't exist yet. So if you have a file, like let's say it's named like file underscore name, like we have down here, right? If that file doesn't exist, then it'll create a new file with that name. If it does exist, it'll just open that file as is, and then we'll access the contents of that file. And here's the syntax for that. You say with open and you put the file name here in quotations and you put the specific mode you want to be in as file and then whichever functions you want to be. And as we discussed from before, the certain modes are read, write, and append. So in that quotations where we have a mode next to the file name, you want to put R, W, or A, which stands for read, write, and append. Let's start with write and append. When we open a file using the write mode, which is W, it'll first clear the entire file, then add the subsequent text. So for example, here we have with open file name W as file, and then file.write hello world, and then file.write AABEA machine learning, right? So the output of that, if we open the file, it'll be this on the top right here. It'll say hello world and AABEA machine learning. And if we go to the next one with open file name A for append, that would add to that file. So when we write to this file with file.write and we put water bottle, it'll just add it to the end of the contents of that file. But you'll notice that we didn't use write here. We didn't put it in W mode, we put it in A mode. And that's because, again, like as I said before, if we use W mode instead of A mode, then it would have cleared the entire contents of the file instead of adding to it. And we would have started from fresh, essentially. So yeah, it would have left us with just water bottle instead of all of this here. And we see that here, right? Like if we use W instead of like if we use W for both cases instead of append, it'll erase hello world and AABEA machine learning and it'll replace it with water bottle, right? It clears the previous text and starts fresh. That's essentially what write does, or W mode. Now let's talk about the read function. There's three different functions for this, and there's subtle differences between all three of them. The read function reads the entire file and returns it as a single string. The read line function reads just one singular line from the file, and if you call it again, it'll move to the next line. And the read lines function reads all of the lines from the file and returns them as a list. So in this example here, we open the file in read mode R, right? And each function will perform something different. So if we go to the next slide, um, you'll see what's actually being read with each function. Read line returns the first line as a string, right? So in this file we have hello world, AABA, machine learning, and water bottle. So if we do file.readline, it'll return the first line, hello world. Read lines will return each line as a list, right? And we covered that before. So hello world, AABA, machine learning, and water bottle, each returned in this comma separated list. And if we call read line again, you'll notice that it goes to the next line. It doesn't, like read lines from before doesn't affect the read line function. It'll just continue iterating through each line. So if we called it again, it would go to water bottle. Here's a little question. What's the key difference between W, write mode, and A, which is append mode? So just answer that in the question in the chat and see if you can remember from before. I'll give you guys like 30 seconds to a minute to answer this one. See if you can remember the difference between the write mode and the append mode from earlier. Recall the examples I gave with the certain text file and like what happened when I used W mode or A mode. Or if you guys, you don't have to type in the chat, you can like just call it out here, but I'll give you guys 30 seconds to a minute for that. All right, no one wants to answer. All right, if you guys forgot, it was the difference was that write starts from fresh, right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. There we go. Yeah, write mode starts like new file and append mode adds new data. When you say write mode is like a new file, I wouldn't say like new file. I'd say it just like starts the same file from like fresh, right? Like it kind of clears the data that's already there and then it adds whatever you want to write to it. Because you're not like creating a whole new file. It's still the same file. It's just you're clearing the contents of that file and then starting from fresh. But yeah, that's a good description. Now let's talk about CSV files, which are commonly used to like store data in a simple like table kind of format. And this is important here because when we start to get into like the machine learning stuff and we want to process data, often we're going to be taking that data from CSV files. And I'll tell you firsthand, with my college classes, we've had to use CSV files for our machine learning, when we're talking about machine learning. And CSV stands for comma separated values, meaning each value in a row is separated by a comma. So we have this example here, and you see name, comma, color, comma, height, comma. Yeah, just like that. And these files are often used in spreadsheets or like Google Sheets, making them great for storing and sharing data. And you'll notice that like the first line here usually contains like the keys or column headers that we we have, right? Like the name, color, height. Like those are like the kind of keys that we use for all of the data we're going to be storing from after that. Each entry in the rows following that is like an is like the actual data itself, right? So here we have Ornob for name, and then the color would be red, height 7, key 1, key 2, 56, and 57, right? Or 77. And so that's like the actual data entry for that row pertaining to the columns. Here's like an easier kind of way to think about it. Remember we went over dictionaries from last time? It's almost like a dictionary. So like each column name, like name, color, height becomes keys and the values are under each column. So yeah, like this is kind of one way to think about it essentially. Like you have all these columns here and then you have the values here. To make working with CSV files easier in Python, we often use the pandas library. And we'll go more into libraries in depth next week, but for now, like a library is a place where we can use certain functions other people have already made by importing the library. So when we have here, it says import pandas as PD and then PD dot function, right? Um, Here, like one of those functions, PD read CSV, allows us to quickly read a CSV file and store its data in what we call a data frame. And this is where we can like manipulate, filter, sort, or like analyze the data that we have. Using this library pandas saves us like a bunch of time, right? Which is like what I've been stressing. That's like the name of the game, right? Efficiency. Because it automatically handles like the formatting and stuff like that for data analysis, you know. So yeah, like we're gonna be using pandas a lot, so it's best to get familiar with it, I'd say. And here's some other like pandas functions that are pretty useful. Once we load our CSV into a pandas data frame, we can use these, right? So print df.head, that'll show the first 5 rows of the data set, which we can use for like previewing an entire data set. Like there could be like hundreds and thousands of lines, right? But we can print the first 5 here, and that'll show us like essentially a preview of what's to come. And columns, df.columns here, it'll let us know which fields are available, right? Like shape also here, df.shape gives us the dataset size by letting us know the number of rows and columns. Dot info provides um details about like data types and the number of like uh, non-zero values in each column. These functions, like you don't have to like memorize them for now, but it's like it gives us a quick overview without having to open the whole file manually, which is why they're pretty helpful, right? Because you have like thousands of data entries maybe, and you don't want to be have to go through all that, right? So like using this like kind of helps with that. And there's plenty of documentation for more functions too. Like I suggest you can just like look up something like pandas, yeah, pandas functions Python, and then you'll see like a few links here. This is like the official pandas like database. There's other functions here that you can use. So I suggest like looking through these, and I encourage you guys to look explore this on your own time. I'll post this link in the Discord later in the resources chat. But yeah, this is like pretty important stuff because once we get to the machine learning stuff, we're going to be using certain libraries, and pandas is going to be one of those libraries. So if you get familiar with the functions, then it'll kind of help you and set you up for success later, which I heavily recommend. Here's some more ways to use pandas, right? We can like select a single column to get all of its values by doing this, right? df underscore name, right? And then putting it in brackets, column 1, that'll return all the values in that specific column. And we can do this for multiple columns. It doesn't just have to be one column. Like if we use a comma to separate two different columns, then we can return um, two different columns values. And we can even use filters, right? So we can return only the rows where a condition is met. For example, here for when the height is greater than 4, that'll filter all the values in the height column that are greater than 4. And remember, like the greater than symbol, which we also covered, like that's like if it's greater than 4, it'll return that. If it's less than 4, it won't return that, right? Um, this last one, age, like it's easier to do quick calculations, right? Like if you want to add one to all the values, you can do that by just adding one. And even down here, when we look at the dot mean function, that's another quick calculation that we can do to return like the mean of a certain column. So like df name age dot mean, that would return the mean of the age column. And overall, like Pandas is like a really powerful tool and library for just like filtering, selecting, and analyzing data with just like a few lines of code, right? This is just like these are very brief functions and like conditionals that we're going over, but it returns a lot of information that we can use to our advantage, right? All right, so here's another little question pop quiz. Which one of these functions would you use to return the dimensions of a data frame? I said you didn't have to memorize, but it's just good to like just know off the top of your head sometimes. You don't want to have to look it up every time you forget, even though you can, but would it be A, B, C, or D? Dimensions of a data frame. Essentially just how like big your data is. I'll give you guys like a minute or two. Just take a guess which one you guys think it'll be. And answer in the chat and unmute your mic if you want. But yeah, I'll give you guys like 30 more seconds. Even if you don't know, just like take a guess, just based on like the name of the function, right? Like which one would you use if you want to return like the rows and columns? Okay, we have D. I'll give the others like 15 more seconds to answer before I reveal the answer. Okay, it's yeah, it's B. It's actually not D. And this was kind of a trick question because the dimensions are rows and columns, right? So you might think it's df dot column, but column only returns the names of the column. Df dot shape, which is the correct answer, returns the number of rows and columns, the dimensions, right? Like if you have two columns and four rows, then it'll return those values. Like you want the number values, not the name of the columns, right? So yeah, the answer is B, df dot shape. And here's the last question I kind of have. Um, so I'll give you guys like a few minutes for this one because like this is an actual like data set, right? Which pandas command would you use to select only the students taller than 4 and then return their average age? This one might be a little more difficult. It's kind of combining a few of the functions that I discussed from earlier. And but just give your best shot. This one, like even like like all of them look pretty similar, but just yeah, try and guess which one you think it can be. And remember, the order here matters, I would say. Like the students taller than 4 and then return their average age. So keep that in mind. I'll give you guys like a minute to go over that one. So yeah, take a minute or two, look over the data set, try and recall what some of these functions did and some of the things we discussed earlier with like what you're able to do and like how you're able to return certain things, right? Taller than 4, and then return the average age. And give you guys another minute or two because this one is a lot like more thinking than the previous one. C, and then you're thinking still. Okay, I'll give you like another like minute to think. If you don't know it, that's okay. It's like, and this was kind of a lot to like throw at you all once. Like this is combining multiple things from what we discussed earlier. So we have B, and does anyone else want to answer? I'll give the answer away in like 30 more seconds. Okay, yeah, the answer is actually B. So good job with that one. Here we have DF height greater than 4, and then age dot mean. So when I said like the order kind of matters, um, when we look at the question, it's asking for students taller than 4 and then like return their average age. So what you want to do first is look at the height and then like use that comparison operator, check if it's greater than 4 and then you want to do age dot mean. So if you chose C or if you were choosing between B or C, like it's very similar syntax wise. So I won't blame you for that. I was like more thinking like logically how would you approach it? Because A and D don't make sense, right? Like A, you're evaluating the age, the mean of the age first, and then you're going to the height. And then D doesn't even like mention the height whatsoever. So it would be between B or C, but like syntax wise, B is the correct one. You would use DF and then brackets and then DF again instead of just one DF. But yeah, that's the correct answer for that one. So hopefully that's like a brief overview on like file handling and then also like pandas and data sets and stuff like that. Um, Next week we're gonna go a lot more into like libraries and stuff. So, like the first 4 weeks that we've been doing so far, it's been kind of just like introductory Python stuff, like just syntax and like certain functions and like stuff like that. But we're gonna start to like ramp it up from now on. Like we're gonna actually start going into like certain machine learning stuff because um because that's the objective, right? We want you guys to eventually be able to like analyze certain data and then like take certain machine learning and AI concepts and apply what you've learned to that. So yeah, that's why this stuff is pretty important. Like we're starting to shift into that. So in your own time, I'd suggest again looking at like the pandas, uh some pandas functions maybe. Um it's good to always have a grasp on that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had for now. The file handling isn't too much of a difficult topic. So yeah, like next week we'll start to really ramp it up kind of thing. And also I suggest looking at the course overview we gave just to get like a good idea on what we're going to be talking about from now on. It's just been like basic Python stuff, but now we're going to talk about like machine learning and stuff like that. So yeah, I suggest looking at the Discord, taking a look at that course overview, and then even trying out some of the activities for yourself. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had. Um, Jamshed uncle. I think Ornob should almost be done as well. I'm not sure what he's doing right now though. Hold on, let me message him. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm gonna join the breakout room and then let them know that we're pretty much done, and then we can start to like go into other things too. Okay, I'm back. I don't know if you got my message, but mm, I think in the meanwhile, until they join back, we can do one of the activities, I'd say, from the course overview that we posted in the Discord. Um, okay, let me pull that up just so you guys have something to do in the meanwhile. Mm, Let me share my screen again. Okay, so right now we're on week 4 with the file handling. So I'd suggest um with these activities right here, if you're still not as familiar, you can start with the beginner ones and then move on to the moderate ones. But yeah, I'd suggest doing one of these activities in the meanwhile, just so you have like a good grasp on file handling kind of thing. And then we can move on to next week. We'll go into libraries and then like the data visualization. So yeah, this kind of almost the end of like your basic like Python knowledge. So I'd suggest doing one of these activities in the meanwhile. And this is in the Discord, by the way. So if you guys have joined, if you go to the questions chat, we have the activities posted in this Google Doc right here. So just fire a collab and I'd say do one of these activities. And if you have any questions, again, just ask me here. I'll zoom in and leave this here. So while you guys are working on this, if any of you guys want to take a shot. Also, if you guys do end up doing these activities, you should post it in the Discord because we like looking at that stuff, like what you guys are creating on your own time. Like, some other people have done that, so you know, just good, always good to get feedback from others and stuff like that. Oh, you're not in the Discord? Okay. Let me share the link right now in the chat then. Uh, hold on. Give me 1 second, and I'll send that link in the chat. I'm sorry, I didn't know you weren't in it. Yeah, there it is. Also, I'm gonna post the link to the pandas functions in the resources and links chat as well.
Hey folks, I'm just coming back to this. Are we done with the class for today? Or
Yeah, we just wrapped up. I was just telling them to do one of the activities that we have listed in the meanwhile. I don't know if Orno wanted to come back and give any like closing things or anything like that.
gotcha.
But we wrapped up like our thing here, our class here.
Okay, let's see if wait, how do you message people? Maybe we can message or not, but he's in the other room, right?
Yeah, I think I have to join the other room to message him.
Okay.
Are you guys done here?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what's up. So basically, what we did was just a quick overview. We just flew through the thing, like the slides again, and then I told him to start learning Matplotlib, and then I didn't go as per the Google Doc. I told him to just grab some random data set and then start messing with it in pandas and Matplotlib. I'm gonna be sending them an example in the Discord so they can see what they're expect or not what they can see what they can do. And then for those guys, if they actually send them, we're gonna be going into I'm gonna start like the base machine learning theory or like how like it works, like just a little bit how it works in the back end so they can use PyTorch next week. So essentially just skipping week 6 for those guys if they actually do it. That's about it. That's not good, Shine.
Yeah, I mean that sounds good.
Okay. All right. Essentially done here. Thank you everyone for coming.
And thank you, Arnab. Bye.
See you later.